Hello and welcome to 9394, a music podcast with Travis Roy. I am Travis Roy and I thank you for joining me today. We are here to talk about Soundgarden and their album Superunknown. Joining me is my dear friend Derek Fern. He's returning to the show. He's becoming one of my regulars for sure, and I'm very happy about it. Check out this conversation that me and my good buddy had about Soundgarden. Hi, Derek.
What's up, Trav?
So you are officially, I believe, I didn't check. I should have double checked. I could double check right now. I'm not going to. I believe you are now the person who's been on the show the mostest with your fourth visit here today. So welcome.
Fantastic. Yeah. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you. What album are you here to talk about?
We are talking about the 6-time platinum, Grammy Award winning, 4th studio album by Soundgarden, Superunknown.
Album from the era. Absolutely had to be covered on this show. I kind of thought it would have been taken sooner than now. Do you remember how you got into this album?
I can't remember exactly if it was like a mall purchase from a record store or if it was one of my many, 2 or 3 different Columbia House expeditions.
Sure.
But I remember that I got into this album specifically because of the video for Black Hole Sun.
What a ubiquitous video. That was such a huge video.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you never saw a video like with that much production and just like the imagery of that video as, 13-year-old Derek was just captivated.
In my eyes, indisposed, in disguises no one knows, hides the face, lies the snake, in the sun, in my disgrace, boiling heat, summer stench, neath the black, the sky looks dead, call my name through the cream, and I'll hear you scream again. Black hole sun, won't you come? Wash away the rain, black hole sun. Won't you come? Won't you come? Won't you come?
And it was on regular rotation on MTV.
Oh, yeah.
I felt like every time I turned on MTV, it was on.
Yeah, definitely. It's killer. It's still good to this day and creepy and gives you goosebumps and you're like, ooh, weird. The creepy smiles that pop up and then, the black hole that opens up in the sky and starts sucking people up.
So I remember getting into this album. I had Bad Motor Finger as a kid. Came out in 91 and Outshined was a pretty big single. And I've heard that in some places, so I picked up that cassette. So I was excited about this album when it came out. And I got it on CD, one of my earlier CDs. And I just couldn't really get into it. I really tried to. I listened to it a bunch, but I just couldn't really connect with it. And I think that most of that is, well, I think it's twofold. There's a break here between Bad Motor Finger and Superunknown in terms of like development in this band. They took a big leap forward, I think, between their third and fourth album. So it wasn't just more of the same. It wasn't like straightforward grunge. This is almost like psychedelic rock, like classic rock type stuff.
Yeah,
there's a lot more intricacies that are going on here that kind of threw me when I was expecting more like chugga chugga crunch crunch.
Mm-hmm.
And then more than that, 100% what the real deal was is that I was a fucking 13-year-old asshole and was like, oh, people like it, I don't like it, it was pretty much that, like it's like I bought it when it was new, and then to my horror other people started liking it as well, and I'm like, no, that's not what's supposed to happen. And that was really important to me at that age, to like not like the same thing as what everybody else liked. I think I was harder on it than I should have been, and I never really did return to it. So it was cool getting into it the last few weeks and listening to it more and more and giving it its fair shake, because while I had back in the day and I had like some memories of it, there are some songs on here that I had completely forgotten about.
That's fair. I mean, for me, it was a huge album to me personally.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this earlier, is that, like my punk stage, like music is personal. It's always, your music. But in my later teen years, I was sharing it with you and the rest of the friends that we had in our group. So it felt a little different, I guess. Like, when these albums came out, when I was listening to grunge and alternative, when that was everywhere, it was more of like a personal experience, because I would just sit in my room for hours on end, following along with the lyrics and reading every liner note, trying to learn everything I can about it, pre-internet, where you can't just Wikipedia everything, I mean, this was just one of those albums, this, 10, In Utero, Nevermind. It was in that mix of albums that were just huge to me, and I just listened to them incessantly over and over and over again, every nuance. And again, as I kind of mentioned previously on the Betty episode, I was into guitar at this time, so this album like blew my mind from a guitarist perspective with this time signatures and the weird ass tunings. I think I still have, I didn't want to crawl in the crawl space and dig it up, but I'm pretty sure I still have the original tab book for this album that has like bass and guitars and everything completely tabbed out.
I bet that was a big seller that year.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure it was huge. Yeah.
I was very reliant on tablature at that age. I never really did learn how to play guitar properly. I just, guitar worlded my way through it.
Yep.
But, you listed this album with a bunch of juggernauts from the era, and rightly so. However much I may not have connected to it, it clearly was one of the biggest albums of 1994.
Yeah.
Black Hole Sun was easily one of the biggest singles of 1994. I mean, hands down.
The album itself is 15 tracks, and a third of them were singles. 5 singles.
Okay, so there are 5 singles. I think I know what they are. You tell me if I'm wrong. So I know that Black Hole Sun was a single. Spoon Man was a single, because I remember the video. Fell on Black Days was a single. And then it starts to get a little iffy. My Wave was a single.
My Wave, yep.
And The Day I Tried to Live?
Nailed it. Yep.
Okay, I nailed it. Yeah, but it definitely seemed like, and I guess this happens pretty often when an album has multiple singles. Like, I remember hearing a lot of the first 3 tracks, but not really hearing the other 2, the last 2, as much.
Yeah, right.
And again, Black Hole Sun was fucking, it was everywhere. It was
eclipsed everything else.
Yeah. So, that was clever. Good job.
Thanks. Good catch.
You're so funny. So, what's your favorite track on this album there, fella?
Oh man, we're going right there.
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, we could talk about how we know each other some more, but we've been over that really a whole bunch.
Yeah, bands and Food Town. Yeah, we covered all that.
Have we covered Food Town? Did we talk about Food Town?
That was on Betty. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, again, you've visited the show a few times.
Yeah. Well, and I'm cursed with just a splendid memory.
I'm blessed with the memory of a goldfish.
I'm gonna have to go with 4th of July.
Shower in the dark day, clean sparks diving down, cool in the waterway, where the baptized drown, naked in the cold sun, breathing life like fire. I thought I was the only one, but that was just a lie, 'cause you heard it in the wind, and I saw it in the sky. I thought it was the end, I thought it was the 4th of July.
So that was 100% what I thought was going to be my favorite track of this album. Because I remember as a kid thinking this is the best song on the album. Tell me why you love it.
Yeah, it's super grungy. It's melancholy, it's heavy, somewhat subdued. Like it's not quite like kick in your face, like ripping kind of, you know, drop D guitar stuff. And it's in actually a super weird tuning. Like this was one of those songs that, I don't know, I had to buy different gauge strings because some of the strings are tuned so low that like my strings were so rattly it just sounded like shit. Like it's super low and it's a super bizarre tuning. It's not like a straight standard tuning. But yeah, like the top two strings are dropped super low. But anyway, I love his low register as well on that song. I just think it shines so much on this song. And then, you know, when it kicks in the second verse and it never stops, the higher octave singing over it, kind of layered in the background, just has this eerie kind of feel to it. And that song just gives me goosebumps, man. I love it.
Yeah, I wonder how they pulled that one off live, because it very much is dependent on the dual vocals that you're getting from Cornell in that song. But yeah, I think this was always kind of a crowd favorite. I definitely talked to other people that have said that this was their favorite song. And like I said, it was my favorite when I was a kid. And it's really a pretty subdued song.
Right.
And an extremely long album. Frankly, too long, in my opinion. 70 minutes is too goddamn long.
70 minutes long, yeah.
There's other songs that might, at first blush, seem like they'd be more standout. But that this became a fan favorite, I think says a lot about the... How can I put it? It's hard to put my finger on. There's something really muted and, morose happening with this song.
Yeah.
You know, we were an angsty bunch in 1994, not just us 13, 14-year-olds.
Right.
The country and maybe the world in general. But, yeah, it is a really good song. What's it about? Any idea?
I read something. I think it's about taking LSD.
Oh, cool. I thought it was about the end of the world.
Well, I guess if you take too much, it could feel like that.
This is true, as I know. Yeah, it's definitely a good song. You know, like I said, I really thought going in that I would choose it to be my favorite too, and I surprised myself by choosing a different song. When I first put this album on recently, I was on a long drive, and so I had the windows down. It was like a nice day, good day, like to blare some rock music, you know, and while I've heard The Day I Tried to Live a whole bunch of times, it didn't really hit me that time. But when I listened to it the next time, I could really hear better all of the subtleties of the guitar work and the kind of delicate layers that are taking place within that song. And it's weirdly hopeful. He tried to live. That's not super hopeful. But coming from someone who had the end that we are all aware of what his end was, it does feel pretty hopeful on the album in a lot of ways.
Yep.
It's just a really pretty song, and it gets stuck in your head really good. It kicks ass. It's definitely an underrated song, too. My favorite.
Yeah, I'll give you that for sure.
Seize the day,
Yeah, I mean, I think his vocal work on that track's amazing. You know, he just hits those melodies. He was so good at vocal melodies and harmonies, and he had such a range too.
Yeah.
You know?
And I feel like even before he passed, people were coming around and finally, maybe not so much in the 90s did people talk about his voice, but in the last like 10 years or so, I think it started to become a lot more obvious that this guy was one of the best male vocalists of our time.
Yeah, for sure.
He definitely has gotten his due as a vocalist. I don't think he's gotten his due as a guitar player. I think he's a really, really talented guitar player. And, you know, Kim Thale it's kind of like the James Iha, Billy Corgan thing, where people, like, back in the day, everyone kind of thought that Iha was doing everything, but really Corgan was doing a lot. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying Thale doesn't do anything. Thale is amazing, but I think that a lot of people credited stuff to Kim Thale that, in fact, Chris Cornell was doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think he wrote at least 3/4 of the songs, the music himself.
Oh, really? I know he did most of the lyrics, but I didn't know he wrote all the music.
Yeah, most of the music is credited to him. Yeah, but I mean, original Soundgarden, he was the drummer. He started as the drummer.
No shit.
Back in the 80s, yeah, he was the drummer.
Wow.
I think he was singing or when they figured out that he could sing, I don't know, I've been kind of on a kick of watching like 90s interviews and, you know, of 90s rock stars and stuff. And yeah, he was behind the kit. And then I guess they formed a cover band because they were broke and they needed to make some money. And they put him in front and they're like, oh, wow, he can sing. So eventually they moved him up front and he learned to play guitar. Like he wasn't even prolific at guitar when Soundgarden started. He learned the instrument. So in a lot of the interviews I've read or heard with Kim Thayil, that he played guitar like a drummer. So like his riffs and his rhythm patterns and things like that, and understanding time signatures and beats and stuff like that made him really unique as a frontman holding the guitar, where he could speak the language of everything. You know, he knew how to talk to the bassist and the drummer of the rhythm section, but also learned guitar and became quite prolific.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a loss. You know, he passed right here in Detroit.
Yeah, it was a few days before they were going to play a show in Denver.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Were you planning on seeing him at that show?
It was too expensive. I think it was like a $200 ticket. And oddly enough, it was Dillinger Escape Plan opening for them. Every other day it was Dillinger Escape Plan opening for Soundgarden. How weird is that?
That's an interesting mix.
That's why I kind of wanted to go, but I couldn't afford it at the time.
Yeah, and ended up not mattering. That was definitely a shock when that happened, when that was announced. Sure. But you listen to this album and... lyrically speaking, suicide does come up more than once.
A lot, yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those things, like, in retrospect, you're like, oh, shit, right, this was all kind of being telegraphed all along, but, you know, you didn't really see it or hear it.
Well, and the final track, like Suicide, clearly it's right there.
Talking about someone else, but still.
Yes, yeah, he is. Well, and what I read about that, the meaning of that song is, you know, I was in the other room or something as part of the lyrics, but a bird flew into his window from the other room. He didn't know what it was. He's like, that's weird, and tried to go back to sleep, but then later he found out it was a bird that flew into his window and it was suffering. Oh. So he actually humanely killed it. And that's probably the most straightforward lyrics of any of the songs on the album, I'd say, because he uses a lot of metaphors and things like, I mean, he's using it here, but the inspiration was quite literal. You know, it's like suicide to fly into a window.
That's funny, because I read where he had gotten the idea for Black Hole Sun when he like misheard something that someone said on the radio. That's lyric writing, man. You know, the muse strikes whenever. You just kind of pick and pull from whatever happens in your life. And a good lyricist can take something like a rather mundane event, like a bird flying into your window, and turn that into something that people can speculate on and analyze and turn over. I mean, even well before he took his life, that people, I mean, you know, I thought the song was about like a mother that took her life or something. You know, maybe his own mom or something. I didn't really know. You know, I don't know his history. But, yeah, that's definitely one of the marks of a strong lyricist, is that you can take some pretty prosaic stuff and make it sound fascinating.
Well, his lyrics are beautiful.
Yeah.
And again, his vocal melody on that song is beautiful. I absolutely love Like Suicide. So for me, it was a tough call between that song and 4th of July as my favorites on the album.
Yeah, it's a really, really good song. It's a really strong ending to the album. It's one I considered for my underrated. But with the subject matter, it's kind of, regardless of what he means by it, there's still like this taint to it, at least in my mind.
Right. No, yeah, for sure.
And
Well, and it's a 7-minute song that does not feel like 7 minutes, and you kind of wish it wasn't over when it is.
No. And that's how you get a 70-minute album, is that you have like the shortest song on there is probably like 5 minutes long, it seems like.
Well, I think the shortest one is Half, and it's right around 3 minutes.
Is that Chris Cornell singing on Half? It's
no,
not, right?
it's
I didn't think so.
the bassist, Ben Shepherd. He's credited to all of the music and the lyrics, and I think he even plays the guitar and drums. I think the whole track is Ben Shepherd.
Oh, for Half?
Yeah, at least that's what I see in the liner notes. That's what it looks like.
Okay, yeah, it does stand out as a song on the album that feels a lot different than every other song on the album, not just vocals.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. What's your least favorite track on this album?
Well, we're talking about it now.
I had a feeling that's why I asked.
Yeah, I kind of figured that would be on your list as well.
It's not. It's not my least favorite.
No way.
No.
Yeah, for me, I don't know. It doesn't feel like it needs to be there. And I almost feel like it would be a stronger song leading into like Suicide if it was just an instrumental.
And maybe like 30 seconds long or a minute long.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not the strongest track on the album. I agree.
No.
Especially, again, with an album that lengthy, you make something like that a B-side. Like, okay, Ben, nice job. Yeah. We're going to put this on the B-side we'll do it for Black Hole Sun, our big single, whatever. Yeah. I don't know. I can understand from Ben Shepherd's perspective being like, yeah, I'm excited, but for listeners...
It's still not a bad song,
No, no, it's not bad.
It's just different, and it feels kind of like wedged in there almost.
That's it, exactly. Yeah, that's my point. It's not that it's bad, it's that it feels so different from every other song on the album that it just doesn't quite match.
Right.
But I did go with a different least favorite song on the album, which was the real reason I turned against this album, was Spoon Man.
Spoon Man.
Fucking Spoon Man. I mean, I'm sorry. To fans of Spoon Man, I'm going to shit all over that song now.
I'm right there with you, to be honest.
It fucking sucks.
Goofy-ass lyrics. I mean, the riffing is rad.
He rhymes hands with hands. Yeah. He does. He literally rhymes hands with hands. No.
Yeah.
And the spoon breakdown is laughable. I mean, it's just like, what the fuck were you guys thinking? Did no one stop you and go, look, man, the spoons are not a cool instrument. Having a spoon solo on your album is not great. Definitely don't make it a single, though.
Yeah, and it was overplayed. Yeah, that's definitely a skip for me. I can't do it.
I do like the riff. It's got kind of this like Led Zeppelin riff going on underneath
totally.
of it, which I do like that, but I find the subject matter so goofy, and it makes me think of the video, which was goofy. I understand Spoon Man was like a real dude, and like, you know, he must have had respect for him and wanted to like help him out or whatever, but it's just fucking goofy to me, and it really turned me off of that album in a big way. It really did.
Yep, I can see that for sure.
Especially when it became a single and I started hearing it more and more. I'm like, yeah, I'm good on these guys for a little while.
Well, and I guess the theme of that song was kind of contrived too, which probably adds to it. But I guess during like the single soundtrack, Jeff Ament, who was the bassist of Pearl Jam, came up with made-up names for made-up songs for a made-up band that was in the movie.
Oh, Citizen Dick.
So one of them was Spoon Man that he came up with, and I guess Chris Cornell caught it as a challenge, and he wanted to live up to it. So he wrote Spoon Man.
Well, I begrudgingly have more respect for the song now because I do love the single soundtrack.
Yeah, right.
Deeply. It's my favorite soundtrack of all time.
Oh, it's killer.
The work that Cornell does on that, and Soundgarden, all that stuff is incredibly good, but that Spoon Man would come from that. That's something else. I guess. All right. I'll take it.
Yep. There you have it. But yeah, I can't listen to it. I've heard it so much over and over. It's just one of those songs that I don't know. Black Hole Sun I can listen to. I've heard that song over and over and over again. But I'm not going to turn it off. Spoon Man, I'm going to turn it off.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I'm still not sick of Black Hole Sun, but Spoon Man, I listen to it every time the last couple of weeks, but moving forward in my life, I will happily skip past it. But I say that because I will listen to this album again on my own, like not kind of nudged into it. I'm glad he chose it. I knew it was going to come up eventually, but I like it better than I thought I was going to. There's a lot more going on than I remembered. And the songs that I like better than I remember. I feel like there's a lot of options that either one of us could choose for our underrated track. I end up shuffling through quite a few different songs thinking that it would be my choice, including Like Suicide. But I did settle on one eventually. What did you settle on?
I settled on Fresh Tendrils.
So did I.
It's so good. It's so
awesome.
good.
It's so
good.
Creepy.
Yeah.
And like Eastern feeling and like psychedelic again. Like it's weird.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, super weird, like verse riff. You know, the riff there is really kind of weird and long, and his melody vocally is great, and then the chorus it just opens up. Yeah. You know, and it has those kind of like tom like quarter note hits, and oh man, it's just such a killer groove when the chorus comes in. It's so good. I love it. It's just a great song. It's probably like a simple, straightforward Soundgarden song that I feel is very representative of the band, too.
I would disagree, and I don't find it to be simple and straightforward. I find it to be a really kind of complex, and I don't find it indicative of a lot of their stuff. I think it stands out as something more esoteric than what they would ordinarily do. It just, to me, feels a lot more like they're experimenting with that song, to me. But you are definitely more familiar with them as a band than me, so I will grant you that.
It reminds me a lot of the direction they went in on Down on the Upside, I guess, maybe.
Okay, so yeah, I've never listened to anything after this album in my life.
Well, you should listen to that one too.
If this is the direction they went in, then maybe I should. Listening to the album in its whole over and over again, like half of the songs are more like I either remember because they were singles or just remember from when I did listen to it back in the day. And then there's a few songs on the album that like I didn't remember as well, and I have to like go check the track, you know, or like, what song is this? Pretty much every time I went, what song is this? It was always Fresh Tendrils every time. I'd be like, oh, what song? Oh, it's still Fresh Tendrils again. Like, this is clearly the song that like whenever it gets my attention, I'm like, you know, cleaning dishes or something, I'll go over and it's I cannot say this word. Fresh Tendrils. Doesn't really roll off the tongue.
No, it doesn't.
I want to say Fresh Tendrils. Anyways, so since we picked the same one, I'm going to say my second choice, which was Limo Wreck. I almost chose Limo Wreck.
That's a great song too.
Kind of like 4th of July, it is, again, kind of like a subdued song, but a little crunchier, a little more brittleness to it. Something dirty going on with it. It almost gives me like a Girls Against Boys kind of feel, which I wouldn't ordinarily pair those bands up, but there's something kind of like dark and groovy happening with it that I really like.
Yeah, that's a great track too.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Good imagery that he paints, and yeah, I mean, what can you say? It's a great song.
Well, it's hard to talk about music. That's why I did a podcast about it.
It's the worst. I hate this. This is awful.
I feel like Soundgarden is one of those bands that I made fun of you for liking back in the day. And just like Alice in Chains, I have to turn around now and be like, sorry, you're right. This is good stuff. I was just iconoclastic at that age, I guess. Couldn't be like everybody else.
Yeah, we all kind of were. But, I mean, we didn't talk about the production yet. And, I mean, just kind of juxtaposing the last episode we did together with Haas that was basically recorded in 7 days or whatever. This album was recorded over 3 months, you know, clearly much bigger budget. It's clear in the production value. Reading a little bit about it, it sounds like they really spent a lot of time with producer Michael Beinhorn nailing down the tones. And they recorded every track in like singular, which is, you know, we've done recordings together, and typically what you do is you go in, find a good drum and bass tone, you lay down, you know, the rhythm tracks, you throw out a scratch guitar track, and then you go record guitars and vocals. But they would record each song that way, as opposed to laying down drums and bass for every song and then going through and doing all the guitars and everything. So they really nailed down tones per song.
Track by track.
Track by track, yeah. So if you really think about it, for me, I guess I can kind of hear that, because every song does kind of have its own feel, and it's not necessarily just it being a different track, but there's also some really great cohesiveness of the entire album. I mean, it's super well produced. The guitar tones are great. Some ambience here and there that just fits perfectly. The layered vocals and the harmonies. I mean, it's just a super well recorded album.
And this was on A&M Records, which Bad Motorfinger had been on A&M Records when it came out in 1991. And I feel like, you know, probably the heads, the execs were like, what happened? Why did Bad Motorfinger take off the way that Nevermind did, or the way that 10 did? Like, what happened? But now, it's 1994 or 1993 when they started recording this. So like, okay, so we're seeing that things have changed, and I bet they're like, okay, these are our guys. Let's throw a bunch of money at them and give them all the time they need to record, and give them the time to craft something so that we can have something to beat Geffen.
Right.
And they succeeded. I mean, this ended up, like I said, this really dominated 1994. I mean, if I had to choose a single album that was the most ubiquitous that year, it maybe be this one. However much I didn't listen to it too much myself. It was like, on the radio, these guys owned the radio.
Yeah. I'm sure they pushed it a ton, but
sure.
I mean, they stand on their own merits, obviously.
Yeah.
It's a great album with some great singles, and yeah, he's a hell of a front man with a great voice, and plus he played live without a shirt a lot, so I'm sure he got a lot of female fans,
With the respect that they have, though, I feel like I never really hear any of these songs out and about in the world. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm grocery shopping and shit, I'll hear some really weird music. I'm like, why am I hearing the Smiths right now? Like, you'll hear, like, all kinds of stuff. And I never hear anything hardly off this album. Like, at a bar or anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess you're right.
At least I don't, now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I should.
Yeah, you should. Huh.
Tell me why.
That's a good point.
Tell me why.
I don't know. Tell me why.
Tell me why. All right, we can cut that out.
Yeah, don't play any music over that.
I'm gonna splice that song in the Soundgarden cover.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I go back and forth, I guess, with this album and Down on the Upside as my favorite by them. I can't remember if they split or if they, for a while, and then came back to do the follow-up to this, or if they just took a little time off. I can't recall, but
as far as I know, they didn't take time off. They were probably just enjoying the wealth and the fame, and probably did a really big world tour that probably wore them out.
Yeah,
that's my guess.
But Soundgarden's just one of those bands. I mean, as we've kind of discussed previously, and I hear a lot on the show, is, their first three albums are where it's at. But pretty much anything before Bad Motorfinger I find not necessarily unlistenable, but I'm just not a fan. It's goofy kind of stuff. I've read in an interview when Bad Motorfinger was when they decided to take themselves a little more seriously, for better or worse. So that earlier stuff is just kind of goofy to me.
Yeah, that earlier stuff was MK Ultra 2, I think it's called.
Yeah. That's a stupid title for an album.
It is. The sequel. Yeah, I had that album too, and I just never fucking listened to it. Like, back in the day, I was just like, this is rough.
Yeah, the recording quality is not great, and the lyrics are not good, and yeah, I mean, it's okay to be a joke band or not take yourselves too seriously, because, I mean, they came from like a punk background, so, late 80s punk band kind of influences, so I get it.
Yeah.
But also, I feel like over time they became much better musicians, and they're like, okay, well, maybe we're actually kind of good now, so let's step it up a little bit.
And Cornell, and that they were friends with people like Eddie Vedder and Andrew Wood and those kind of guys from that scene, and even the bands that they weren't friends with necessarily from Seattle, they would have seen them all starting to blossom and get recognition nationally and internationally. So I imagine it would have been hard to be like, nope, we're going to keep on fucking around and making dumb shit. Like, it'd be hard to do that.
Yeah, touche. Yeah, gotta keep up with the Joneses, right?
Right. Well, I mean, if you got that skill level,
it
was really only a matter of time.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up that Matt Cameron on drums is phenomenal as well.
Is this the last album he was on drums for?
I think he stuck with the band on the next one too.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. He's got some great beats, some great grooves. He's really solid. So I feel like I would do our friend Jeff Brandstrom a disservice if I didn't shout out the drummer and just say I think he's probably underrated in the band as far as members go. And yeah, I mean, he just sounds great. Great tones and pretty straightforward beats, but he has these little nuances here and there that just kind of set him apart, I'd say.
Oh, actually, yeah, I think he was with Soundgarden until they broke up and then went over to Pearl Jam. Sounds
yes.
right.
Yep.
Right? Yeah.
He filled in later for them.
Still, he's been with them since.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so I have an interesting end of episode topic of conversation for you today.
Goody.
I'm going to shift gears. We're going to get into the super unknown, if you will.
Ooh.
So this album came out on March 8th, 1994. On that date, in Michigan, in western Michigan, so on the other side of the state from where you and I live, or lived, but on that same date, over 300 people reported seeing UFOs in the sky that night.
No way, really?
Over 300 people claimed to see like similar things, like red and white dots in the sky, like lined up and like turning it into triangles, and then kind of like doing like a weird spinny thing, and then like moving on. And at least 300 people called 911 about it. So those are like recorded. So a lot of people saw this thing. You hear about the Arizona lights around the same time. I think it was 96 or 97, but I've never heard of this. Have you ever heard of this?
I have not, no.
I never heard of it either until I Googled March 8th, 1994. Let's see what comes up. The first thing at the top was Michigan's UFO sightings on this date over Lake Michigan.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. So my question for you is, have you ever seen a UFO?
No.
Boring.
I know. I wish I was cooler. See, I was obsessed with like Unsolved Mysteries and those kind of shows back in the day.
This event has been on Unsolved Mysteries, actually.
Yeah, of course it has. Maybe my memory's not as good as I say it is.
Well, I think you still have a good memory, even if you don't remember every episode of Unsolved Mysteries that you've seen.
True. Yeah. I loved Robert Stack's voice and creeping me out as a young adolescent. So
yeah,
I was always looking to the skies, but I mean, I can't say that I've ever seen anything. I mean, I've seen satellites slowly move across the sky, pale reflection from the sun moving slowly, but yeah, nothing that caused any alarm or excitement.
Do you believe in UFOs?
I do, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, growing up, I also had like the Time magazine books of like unsolved stuff. I think I got that for Christmas.
Those looked so cool. I remember the advertisements for those. They were so creepy advertisements.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I never got them. You had them?
Yeah, it was like a written form of Unsolved Mysteries,
Yeah.
I remember, around the same time, just reading those books incessantly and over again, looking at the pictures, I still see the same kind of stock photos that were used in that book when UFOs were discussed. And I'm like, oh yeah, that was in that Time magazine book that I had. Yeah. Might still have somewhere, also in the crawl space.
Nice. I didn't see anything as a kid. In 2021, I saw something in the sky, which I know I've mentioned publicly before. I don't remember if it was on this podcast or my other podcast, Cinema 9. But I was driving home and I saw what looked like a big green panel light up in the sky. It was very strange. It didn't move. It was just solidly still there, like almost like a little bit above maybe helicopter level, maybe like airplane level. And it was there while I was driving, and I like made sure I didn't crash my car, and I glanced down, so I didn't crash the car, and looked back up, and it was gone. And it definitely wasn't a reflection because like I tracked it as I took a turn, and I tracked it for like a second, for a few seconds, so like it didn't move with the windows, like in the same spot in the sky, fixed in place. And that was the only thing I ever saw that maybe, again, my assumption is not space aliens. It's possible, I acknowledge, but that's not my assumption. When I talk about UFOs, which I do, I am interested in UFOs, not necessarily little green men, but, there's been a lot going on the last few years that have demonstrated that there's something going on out there. And I was reading some interviews with people that saw this event on March 8th, 1994, and they were talking about how the footage that they've been seeing, now, which they didn't have the ability to make that footage so easily back then, reminds them of those same kind of movements, like the unpredictable and like defying the laws of physics kind of movements and that kind of stuff. Yeah. Which I find interesting. And super unknown.
Yeah, super unknown.
I'm doing it again.
You have to.
Yeah, well, it's a tenuous stretch that I'm making. I'm going to reiterate it.
But yeah, I mean, I've always been fascinated by that. Technologies that shouldn't be, that we don't understand, that we aren't there yet, or at least to the public knowledge, we don't know.
Yeah, that's usually my assumption with this kind of stuff. It's our government or some other government has advanced capabilities that they're not revealing because they're fucking governments and they're secretive, and that's what they do.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
Gotta get ahead of the curve.
Yeah, exactly. All right, buddy. Well, thank you for talking Soundgarden and space aliens with me a little bit.
Yeah, it was for sure awesome, man. I really enjoyed this. As always, man, talking music and hanging out with you.
I look forward to round 5.
Sweet.
Do it again. All right.
I'll start looking for that next episode.
You can do that. Later, buddy.
All right, man. See ya.
I love my buddy Derek, and I love getting to talk to him about Soundgarden. It was a treat. He's always welcome on the show. I think he's probably coming back, so look forward to that. You too, listener, could be on the show if that's a thing that you're into, or maybe you know somebody that you think would be a good fit for the show. You could talk about any album you want from the era from 1993 to 1994, so long as I haven't already done the album. If you're looking for a suggestion, perhaps remember Rollins Band and the album Wait?
To think too much, it makes me think too much. It keeps my mind on my mind. Don't wanna see too much, it makes me see too much. Sometimes I'd rather be blind. All the things that they're saying and doing when they pass me by just fills me up with noise. It overloads me. To disconnect myself, pull my brainstem out and unplug myself. I want nothing right now. I wanna pull it out. Yeah, I wanna pull it out. Yeah.
They had that song Liar that was a pretty big hit, and also this song Disconnect, which is a pretty good song. So you are very welcome to come on the show and talk about this album if you wanted to, or again, anything else from the era. I'm not picky. I just like talking about music from the era. Every episode, I put out a call asking for people to please rate and review, but I got a little extra desperate last episode, and I guess that worked because I got a few reviews in, so I do really appreciate that from those of you that wrote or just, clicked buttons and hit send or whatever. It's all appreciated a whole bunch, so thank you. And if you're a regular listener and you've not rated or reviewed the show, please do. That is it. You can email me at 9394podcast@gmail.com. I can't promise that I'm quick about checking that email, but I can promise that I will check the email eventually. And I think that's where I will leave it. Yep. Do I have anything clever to throw in at the end? No, sorry. Disappointment. Bye. 9394, a music podcast with Travis Roy, is a labor of love. It is not and never will be monetized. Please don't sue.